filled the Capitol, from committee meetings to the streets, strikes, protests, rallies, and testimony. Whether it was for funding or policy change, you told your lawmakers what you wanted to see this session. So how much of it got done? The issues that affect you, from your health insurance and medical bills to crime and gun violence, affordable and accessible housing to your children's schools and daycares. The session may be over, but now new laws will change your communities and your everyday life, like the state budget. What will you do with an extra $300 a year in your paycheck? A rare surplus and historic bipartisanship meant a budget deal with tax cuts and boosts in funding. Certainly the talk of the session, but not everyone is happy. We're getting answers from the governor and breaking down new legislation with the lawmakers who passed it, what got done, what didn't, and what now changes for you. Stay with us this morning to find out. Well, Governor Ned Lamont, thank you so much for joining us here on The Real Story.
Nice to see you, Emma.
You as well. And of course, the legislative session, it's now over. We've done it. We've gotten through. We're out on the other side. So looking back on the past 5 months, for you, in your opinion, how would you describe what happened in the chambers, what was accomplished or not accomplished during 2023 session?
I think a lot was accomplished. I think legislature did us proud on both sides of the aisle. The leaders worked together collaboratively. The chairman worked together with the ranking members. That's why we got a strongly bipartisan budget done on time. Biggest tax cut ever, biggest investments in education and workforce. I think they really made a big difference.
And you mentioned that budget, a really big deal for lots of people, as you said, on both sides of the aisle, very bipartisan. You've said you're happy with it. Obviously, you champion those historic tax cuts, getting a lot of attention. When it comes to the budget as a whole, though, both lawmakers and residents have expressed different frustrations over not doing more with some of that surplus, whether that was more tax relief or bigger funding boosts for certain groups. But you stood by those spending caps and those fiscal guardrails the legislature put in place. Do you feel at all like there could have been more flexibility there, or are you overall happy with those outcomes?
No, I salute the legislature for honoring the guardrails that they put in place themselves. But think about how different this conversation is compared to, say, 5 years ago, when you're talking about how much we may have to raise taxes or how we have to cut funding. Now we're arguing about how much we're going to cut taxes or how much we're going to increase funding in your particular priorities, especially education and universities.
So more happy that there's that shift in conversation, instead of talking about cutting things back in a bad way, or restricting. You're talking about, hey, we have this surplus, we can give more groups money.
And we've done it in a way that we've been able to do it now for 5 budgets. It makes a big difference. Gives small business and families some continuity and consistency. They know what they can expect.
Right. Well, this past week, despite the budget going through, there were a lot of strikers outside on the Capitol lawn still. The Union of Caregivers and Staff at the state's day homes and programs say their strike and protest is not over. Despite the budget passing, they want contracts to be settled and they want government to do more for them. What has been your response, and have there been conversations at all to try and resolve some of those issues?
Well, look, a lot of conversations. Our not-for-profits in general and our group home workers taking care of folks with special needs, they showed up every day during the worst of time in COVID. Everybody else could Zoom. They could not do that. And we're trying to do good by them. We've had significant increases in all the not-for-profits and the group homes over the last few years, and in this budget as well, probably $200 million.
And what do you think needs to be done? What have you heard from them about what will get them off that Capitol lawn and done with their strike?
Well, look, everybody would like a little more. We have significant increases. In their defense, they didn't always get increases in years past. They're often flat funded. I can understand where the frustration is. I can't make up for all of that in 1 year, but we made up for a lot of it.
So let's talk about legislation now. You've got a lot on your desk to sign after this session. Run me through what you think are the major wins. What changes are you hoping Connecticut residents will see coming out of this session as bills start to take effect?
I think the things that are going to make real long-term difference is housing. We can't keep this economy growing. We can't allow more families to move into the state of Connecticut, more workers trained, more businesses want to come in, unless there's a place for people to live. Okay. We haven't built much housing over the last 10 years, and we're picking up the pace over the last few years. And now, thanks to the legislature, following our lead, we've got about $800 million over the next 2 years invested in affordable housing, workforce housing, allowing you a little bit of extra support if you want to buy your first home, so you can do it right here in Connecticut, make it more affordable.
A lot of people are saying, though, they wanted more done with housing. As you said, it's been a tough market. So is there any plan post-session with more to be done when it comes to the housing market we're seeing right now? Do you feel like there was any little bit more that we could see?
Let's digest what we got. We doubled the investments in housing compared to just a few years ago. I want to make sure it works. But look, for the first time in a long time, a lot of people want to move to Connecticut. Right. The only thing holding them back, there's not enough inventory. There are enough houses for them to buy. Right. So if I get more 1- and 2-bedroom houses in downtown areas, maybe some of the older folks who are empty nesters can move out, opening bigger houses for younger families, and also bring our towns and cities really to life.
Another part of this housing conversation, there were several bills and even some sections of the budget that got into state oversight of local zoning. Some people were very upset about that, and you're no stranger to the debate of how much government involvement is too much government involvement, especially after managing a global pandemic. So when it comes to housing and zoning for Connecticut's development, what do you think is the balance there?
I think the balance is we all agree we need more housing, affordable housing, workforce housing, downtown housing. Now I ask our towns, tell us how you want to do it. I want you to take the lead on this. And to be blunt about it, we have more housing built in more towns than ever before in the last decade or so. That makes a big difference. And I want the rest of the towns to step up. That's how you have a town where, your grandparents can afford to live there and their grandchildren can afford to live there.
So not just housing, I know another big win, in your opinion, and a lot of lawmakers this session was gun control bills. We had, gun violence prevention policies, and this was a pretty major package passed after hours of debate this session. You and other advocates say it closes some major loopholes, responds to some gaps in gun control, and of course, Connecticut has always been a leader in this space. Are you concerned, though, about what we're seeing on a national level with Supreme Court decisions and lawsuits already popping up this past week that Connecticut's gun laws might be under attack or even repealed?
Look, the gun safety anti-crime bill that was passed by the legislature is really important, keeps us on the lead. Get those illegal guns off the street. Get those illegal ghost guns off the street. In many cases, our cops are being outgunned. And the flip side of that is those repeat gun offenders, keep them off the street as well. Little hats off to Tony Wong. Senator Wong is up next. He was the one Republican in the Senate to support him, and I thank him.
Yep. So when it comes to things that didn't pass this year, we just talked about highlights, but what's on the top of your list when it comes to picking up where this session left off? Anything you want to reprioritize that didn't make it through this year you want to see at the top of the list next year?
I think the environment.
Okay.
Environment after $5 gasoline, I think folks saying, oh, enough. Let's let China deal with the environment. We want to take a break. We got to figure out what to do with our trash. Right now, we ship it out of state. It's costing us a fortune. It's the wrong way to go. We put in place some plans to take care of that. They didn't get through. I'm going to revisit that next year.
Sure. Anything else besides the waste management? I know that was a big bill that didn't get through, but is there anything else besides waste management or anything else in the environment category that you think should be looked at next year?
I'm going to do a complete analysis of what our energy mix is going to be over the next 10 years. I cannot bring down the high price of electricity unless I can bring down the generation costs. So we've got a deal to bring hydro into the New England region. That's a big deal. Continue to build out solar. And I'll be talking to Millstone, our nuclear power plant. 3 forms of carbon-free power. We don't have to worry what's going on in Ukraine, we can control it ourselves.
And so many are dubbing this session as kind of the session of compromise, a lot of bipartisanship we saw. And you've said that some of that bipartisanship is not really existent on a national level, like how we're seeing here in Connecticut. So it also hasn't always been that reality here in Connecticut, but we really saw it this session. So looking back, how much of a role do you think that compromise and that bipartisanship played this year?
I think Connecticut did us proud. They led by example. I love the fact that, you know, when I first was elected, I said I got an open door at a big table. Not all the time that people want to walk into the door and take advantage of that. This year, for the first time since I've been governor, the Republicans put forward a budget of their own. So I could negotiate that we knew where each of us stood. Appropriations team, those the chair people there, Kathy Austin, Tony Walker, did an extraordinary job. They put in place an honest appropriations budget, made our lives a lot easier.
And how do we continue that bipartisanship? Anything you want lawmakers to keep in mind, or even residents who are looking at this past session and saying, hey, I really liked some of that agreement. How does Connecticut keep that going?
By showing that it worked. You know, if Republicans sometimes say, oh, man, nobody listens to me, I don't want to play ball. They played ball and it worked. They had their place at the table. It made a difference. I think the progressives came together in a serious way. We got enormous initiatives done, especially when it came to education, especially when it came to the biggest expansion of daycare and childcare. I can't get people back to work unless mom and dad know their kid can go to school in a safe place, pre-K.
Besides the lawmakers working together in the legislative chambers, how do you feel your administration worked hand in hand with the legislature?
I think it worked pretty well, didn't it? I mean, I was on the phone every day with the leaders. I was on the phone with the finance and appropriations chair people as well, realizing that's where a lot of the decisions are being made at the local level. You know, Matt Brockman and Johnny Dock on our team really were close contact. You know, you cannot over-communicate, and you got to keep those relationships, those doors open. I think both sides did a really good job.
And for Connecticut residents now, what comes next? The session just ended a few days ago, and now people are going on summer break. Connecticut has a part-time legislature, so a couple months. We won't see the next session until next year. But what should residents know now? What sort of comes next from here? Is there maybe watching some of these bills start to become laws?
Well, so what we do now is, you know, our team, Jeff Beckham, the team at OPM, and Natalie Braswell, general counsel, they read all the language. Look what's in that implementer. There are a lot of stuff gets in there at the last moment. Make sure, you know, we can sign off on that. Then over the course of the next month or so, we'll be signing those bills and trying to explain to people why they're important, why they're going to make their lives a little bit better.
So you'll have a busy couple weeks of signing bills ahead of you here now.
That's it.
Well, thank you so much, Governor. As always, we really appreciate you being on.
Thanks, Emma.
Well, there's still a lot to get to here on The Real Story. The legislative session is finished, but we're not. Still to come this morning, we've got Senate leadership here to break down what passed and what it will mean for you. Stick with us.